Hi, Gramps. It's 4:30 at Mr. Hutch and 3:30 yesterday. Where and 6:30 p.m. yesterday. I don't know. I don't know where we are. But it's 5:30 now. Yeah. How are you doing? All right? Right. How's the room looking? I always feel it looks different. Like I've got camera and lighting gremlins. Must be the same though. I'll have a tidy round. I just need to move this lead out of the way. I like the look of that. Straighten the clock. There we go. That looks about right now. Hello, Scott. How you doing? How are we? Hello, Graham. Doing well. Very good. Hi, Z. So, did all my wins and problems from the last stream, which was great. So, it was just a few lighting tweaks. I think everything looks all right now. It looked okay then, but it's just these minor little things. Yeah, it's going very good, Z. So I've just been very focused on getting the sort of new stream look to look good. So there's been, although the results about the same, there's been quite a little bit for me under the hood. Regarding sort of cameras and things. Because this camera's shooting in what we call S-Log, so like it's a Sony E10 or whatever it is. It's a really decent camera. And normally, like when you just plug the camera in and set it up and off you go, with streaming, Sony has its own sort of, the best way to describe it is it has its own coloration. So ideally, if you're going for the more cinematic look like this, you don't have the camera's default coloration, so you can set it to S-Log, which kind of just makes everything neutral and takes all the coloration that's added out. And then what it allows you to do is apply your own coloration within Ecamm, which is a stream software that I use. So that's how I've done it. That's how I've got this kind of more vivid look. Is it's coming from the loot as opposed to a kind of standard blogger kind of thing. So yeah, I like the look. I like the colors. The colors are more vivid. So that's what you want. You want, I know I like to be real, but I thought, hey, let's go for the hyper reality. So sort of, the reason I've done this is because I've come to the realization it's like, what does it mean to be a modern musician? Well, it means a few things actually. For a modern guitarist, it means using absolutely like being really good at like multiple techniques, hybrid picking, economy picking, alternate picking, tapping, slapping, popping, all the techniques, for me it's about 3 with a bit of tapping. But so yeah, so it's like getting the camera right, and then having sort of, I suppose, my career revolving round streaming. So this is where we are. So we've got the morning streams, and then once a fortnight, starting from next Wednesday, I do my coach training, and then the Wednesday after that, and then every alternate Wednesday there'll be an evening studio session with me. I'm intending on that to be more plain, but there's going to have to be some studio stuff because in terms of sort of the kind of educational side of what I do, the coaching of words, I'll be using that time to get to more people as well, which will be very good. But because of that coming up, I can be a little bit more relaxed on kind of what I talk about and do, because I've got these extra 2 streams. So, because I'm getting used to sort of being on the new look of the camera and seeing more of me on screen, I decided to do a little bit more kind of talky stuff. Yeah. So today I decided to do like, you know, I rarely advertise the streams as well, but I did advertise it because, you know, I've triggered myself into talking a lot at the minute. And one of the things that I decided to do, because I'm thinking about other things to put in to the coaching side that I want to focus on, is back in the day when I first started getting coached, there was a course that I did called Start Now, Finish Fast. And it was just a thing really on email, and then you got like a one-to-one with the coach, and it was absolutely brilliant. And that's the guy who coached me. So I had a lot of success out of that course, actually, just from doing these conditions from success. And you'll have all heard me mention it before, the conditions of the conditions of success are the things you need kind of dialed in some way or another, is environment. So I talked lots about environment the last sort of stream I did. So we talked about that. I can't remember what I talked about in the first one on Monday. It was just completely random, wasn't it? But yes, so I talked about environment and that, you know, the things we can do with that, removing stuff that we're not using, not letting our mobile phones take over our lives. But then that sort of moves us into the next part of this, is understanding how you can develop a habit. All right. So, I mean, the first thing, I mean, I haven't really planned any of this, so I'm just going to like blurt it out. But do tell me, anybody who's here now, does anybody here, does anybody have a regular making music habit? I know some of you will do. But, you know, you can choose to answer that or not. But one thing I do see quite a bit of is people not having a music making habit. And the first thing that happened for me is I just had a look at the anatomy of how a positive habit is actually made. And what it tends to start off with is a trigger, okay? And then you have the thing that you want to do that then starts, and then you have an end point, okay? So the trigger is something you can kind of carefully sort of decide, you know, to pick. And I'll tell you why, because ideally the best triggers to have are the things that you do every day. You certainly do, Sean. Brilliant. So I'm going to have to ask you more about that. So the trigger, okay, that's your start point. That's the thing that flicks your brain into action and says, right, the activity is going to start. All right. So for me, okay, my regular making music activity when I'm not like talking loads to everybody is basically waking up in the morning. So I wake up in the morning, and then I set up for the stream, and I do the stream, and I make music. Is the thing. That's my heavy lift on creativity on the creative front. And then usually lots of like little jobs or like spin off from that I can do at any point in the day, which are planned. But generally, you know, the big lift is in the morning. And the good thing about that is when I wake up, I don't really think about anything. I mean, I can't actually remember switching the lights on. Like in the studio this morning, I just get up like a zombie, and I'm here just putting everything on. and then I kind of come round when I start boiling the kettle for a coffee. But this is my first coffee as well. So the trigger for the activity, or for the day, like talking, but I will be making some music hopefully, um, is getting up. So first thing is think of a trigger, okay, and then of course you do the activity, and then I think a really good thing when you're doing the activity is again have it measured. You don't want it to completely be like indefinite, you know, but certainly have a time limit on it. I think what's important about this is it really gets you into flow, simply because there's a deadline. You kind of work into a deadline, aren't you? Um, and this is another thing that immensely kind of helped me is you would have thought that actually having all of the time in the world to produce music would help you. And this is it's a weird thing, but not necessarily. I know for me, um, when I had all the time in the world, I used to sit watching the television when I had a television. I used to go for walks. I would unwire the whole studio and plug it all back in again. I would test out new bits of gear. I would like anything other than the actual thing I was meant to be doing. Was like total procrastination, and then eventually, because I was in the woo days, I would be kind of, oh, I'm inspired to do something, and then I would start making music. But there was like just hours and hours of things, just time being wasted. Yeah. Uh, I mean, the output was all right. I mean, I got albums done and things like that, and but the whole thing was process. I didn't just start it like a job. I would be like in that land of, oh, I'll just go to the shops. I'll do this. I'll have something to eat. I'll make myself a 3-course meal in the middle of the day. Oh, I fancy going for a swim. There'd be all of this stuff going on, and then I would sit down and actually do the thing. So like being a full-time musician, right? Like a full-time just original musician, which I did for years and years, right? No proper job or anything, living by your wits, doing music, complete rock and roll. It was absolutely wonderful. No, I love my life now. It was just a mess. It was just disorganized. But I actually thought that's what like you were meant to be when you were an artist. Just that kind of what am I doing now? Don't know. I think I'll do this. But what I found later on in life, especially having a kid, because that was like one of the and the other symptom of that is when I wanted to do like some music, if I didn't have like a whole day or days, right, then I would think I haven't got enough time to finish anything, so I'm not going to even bother. So that was like the time was a big factor because I didn't realize how little time you needed. And that was to do with my process of making music, which was I started something and I finished it. To be fair to myself, right? I mean, I go back to the days of MIDI, right? And I had this ridiculous setup. Okay, it was great. I had loads of like cool synths. I had like Waldorf XT. I had 2 W30s like Liam Howlett. I had one of those silver Trinity keyboards, which was great, Korg. I had a blue. What did I have? I had a blue Supernova with like all the knobs. That was a great synth. That I had loads of like really cool stuff. I had a micromodular. I had a Roland Planet S, very vintage. I had an S2 sampler, S2000 sampler, and then I had an S6000 as well that had all the mods on it. It was like really good. Actually, it was a pretty cool studio. Yamaha CX1 I had. That was weird kind of grungy synth. But anyway, it was all MIDI. So basically, and into a big desk. So the problem there was like once you started something, you had to really finish it because your mix was all like analog. There was no instant recall. So it was like one of the things, especially W30s, it was hard to stay inspired because you were loading sounds all the time on discs and then saving sounds to a song disc. So there's a lot of like admin to do when you're writing, and it's hard to really stay kind of focused on the creative side doing that. But anyway, either way, once I started a tune, I had to like kind of get it done. And so like then the studio would be completely out of action till that was done. Once it was done, fade us down and start the process again. So everything was in series. So yeah, it was tough in those days, but it was chaos. Yeah. And then I started kind of getting in the coaching thing. As life kind of creeps in, you start getting jobs and stuff like that. And I've got this music job, but it's to do with other people's agendas. So I thought, like, at first, this is great because I get to do music, right? And then I kind of lost, at that point, I lost my way, I think, as an artist quite a bit. And then I was really dabbling. So I had less time to do the thing that I was doing that needed loads of time, and there was hardly any time. So it was like, I was doing this work and then still practicing and stuff, and getting better as a musician because luckily I'm doing that as a job, but not really expressing myself creatively till I get to the weekend, and then you get to the weekend and then you try and beast yourself, and then it doesn't really work. You're trying to do these long sessions, and then if I had like things booked in, going to the shops, doing things, other jobs, it would be incredibly frustrating. I wouldn't be able to focus or do anything. So it took weeks, months to finish music. It's like I really had to take a run and jump at it. But there was no regular like music making practice. I didn't audit my time. I was completely unaware of time. Just get up and go to work half an hour beforehand and come back in, and I would sit down. I might try and do something in the studio, but it would be, trying to pick kick drums or something for, a track I might make on the weekend. It was pretty grim, really. And then things just get worse after that, because then you end up having a kid, don't you? So then the child gets here. Not that I regret it. It was absolutely amazing thing. But then you've got the kind of kid, and then you've got all of that stuff. So it even becomes more difficult, right? But still, the struggle was there, and I was doing it, and I was making and finishing music. Stuff was happening, but I tell you what, it was hard work. It was painful. There was no routine. There was no nothing. There was beliefs about having to have like weeks to like make music and stuff like that, and I'll take a holiday and I'm good, right? Yeah, that's the one, isn't it? Like, I'll take 2 weeks off and I'm just going to constantly make music. I'll do an album, right? And then I'll go back to work, or I'll do an EP, and that's sort of, I'll feel a lot better. You do it, and then for some reason there's no time to do anything, or I don't feel inspired. So all of this stuff was a result of not having, well, two things: an environment, because then remember, the environment's full of like stuff that I think I either should be using, but don't know how to use, or things I'm bored of, or just like nothing, just chaos. So so there was a need to have like a habit. So when I stumbled into the start now finish fast, environment was first, habits was second. So we've got the trigger. Okay, we've got up to there. So I'm gonna stick with me because I'm gonna ramble a bit, because I've never really planned any of this. So what happened after that? Right, so we've got our trigger, reward. Right, so then there has to be the action. So for me, I tried several things with this. So the first one was just trying to, like, I had to audit my time. So I looked at my day, and this is what I was told to do. And I was told to look at like all of the free time that I had basically throughout the week, and that's what I did. And I made a timetable of the times that I had. Now, I did know about how beautiful morning sessions are, but at the time I was like, fuck that. I'm not getting up in the morning to do music, because that's like, it's also, it's my chill time. It's like this great time. It's like when I've finished doing all my stuff, and then I get to like relax and do music, What I wasn't prepared is to like actually be professional about it, and, and actually, get used to something different. But anyway, I had all of these times, and then I tried to do. That's what I'm saying about AM. Yeah, it's like what all do. Of course, I've like said that. I didn't like go AM as when I'm. From day one, I never went. Mornings are best. I am so disciplined. I'm going to get up. No, I mean, you're talking to somebody who was absolutely. I only learned to do what I'm doing since 2014, and it's been a process, because you have to do things, and then you realize the work, and then your beliefs change. Got a tickly throat. So I audited all of my time. Yeah, that was the first thing. I audited all my time. And then I just sort of like, right, I'll do evenings. All right, so I'll do evenings a certain time. When I come in from work, I'm going to sit down and make music. And well, when you start like something, of course, you're thinking, right, this is great, I'm going to do it. So the first bit of it works really well, and then you miss one. And then you miss another one, and then you do some, and then you're so tired and knackered you can't like focus and stuff like that. And then before you know it, you're back to where you started. So that like didn't work. That was quite sporadic. And then the other part of it was as I was auditing my timetable, then I had a look at what I was doing in my life, right? That were time dividers and time multipliers. Okay, so a time divider, right, is something like, well, it isn't going to serve you music making. So a time divider would be drinking alcohol. See, I never drink now. Okay, so drinking alcohol, you're hungover and your mood's a bit weird, especially if you went out on the benders that I used to, right? So you would, being hungover, no, you like lose loads of time with that. Okay. What else? Computer games. Cooking unnecessary recipes. That would be another procrastination of mine. Watching TV series. There's like lots of dividers. So you're losing time. So what I started doing was kind of removing the things that I felt were like holding me back, and then finding more pockets of time. That was another thing I did. And then I looked at multipliers. So multipliers are things that give you leverage in the scenario. So Clash of the Clans. Yep, there you go, Scott. Clash of the Clans group. I love the honesty. What was I saying? So yes, and then you want to look at the multipliers. So these are the things. Don't be too hard on yourself. So you want to look at like the things that are multiplying. Weirdly enough, like one of the things that actually really helped me multiply time was exercise, and then removing the things that were dividing the time. So things that will add, and then things that are, because I'm always into like creative tools as well that'll actually give me time back. And then the other things that were really good time multipliers was conditions of flow. So flow was a good one. Emails is another one, like going on your emails, surfing the internet, looking at social media. That's like a time divider thing. You get a lot of time back from that. I remember talking about basically like being in flow in the work scenario, right? So people working in an office, right, who are answering the email once every hour, they might read and respond to that email in 5 minutes, but actually for them to get back into the flow where they were when they were most productive, it takes another 25 to 35 minutes apparently on this study. So really, your workers are only getting like 30 minutes, 35 minutes, 25 minutes work every hour, just by answering an email that's 5 minutes with that distraction. And that's another thing, like our brains are easily distracted, aren't they? It's like, and if you have too many distractions, going back to when I didn't have any kind of system at all in my process and I was just left to run wild, my whole life was distraction. So like the more distracted I get, the more difficult it was to actually sit down and create music. So for example, because I was just looking for novelty all the time. And this is to do with our old brain, isn't it? So the front of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, is the newest part of the brain and the least efficient, apparently. And we have the older brain, okay? And the older brain is back in the days where we used to like hunt and chuck spears and, survival, and you had to live by your wits and all that kind of stuff, right? So our older brain is always looking for distractions because it needs to tell the front of our brain, wake up, we need to do some action here, we're in trouble. So if it was a rustle in a tree, it could either be food or something that's going to attack you. Yeah. So and our brains still do these distractions. And then what ends up happening is we just end up looking for more and more distractions, and it completely takes over. And then you can't focus on anything. Which, tying back to the environment thing, is why like all notifications and things like that and everything on my computer is like switched off, so I don't have really anything beeping and distracting me, or at least sometimes it creeps in. I switch it off because I know that beep, right, is going to take me out of focus, and then it's going to take some work to kind of get back to where I was. So that's like another, that's a really kind of quite corrosive like divider of time as well. So yes, auditing your time. So this is all about planning where your sessions are going to go. Okay, so you've got all this time. You pick a time in the day that you're going to do it. You're going to try and look for a trigger. So for me, when I came in from work, the idea was I'd have something to eat, and then I would sit down and do the music. But I'd have something to eat, get caught up in a load of jobs, start messing about doing stuff, right? And then when it came to doing the music, the time in the evening would get smaller and smaller and smaller, and then I'd be too tired, basically, in the end, to actually be any good to do anything, and the process would be quite painful. So that didn't particularly work for me. It might work for some people, but it wasn't a great option for me. Tell me if I'm rambling, guys. So then what I had to do is I was thinking in the back of my mind, mornings are kind of making sense, right? And why they were making sense is because if you think of when you wake up in the morning, your energy levels, your attention spans up here, and as you're going through the day, and you're getting to the end, you've got less tension span. Okay, so distracted, tired, can't be arsed, all that kind of thing at the end of the day. So what I did is I just transplanted the end of my day in the end to the beginning of the day. That was the thing that kind of sort of made sense to me. So at least I would have my energy to do what I was doing, even though it would be like chaotic at first. And then I had to make a commitment, really. That was the big thing. I thought, at the end of the day, I'm really struggling doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I really, really want to do it. I can't continue the rest of my life, right, going to work, coming in, trying to do music, because what it was doing is it was just making me resentful, because everything I was doing in my day just felt like a barrier I had to get through, to get to the end of the day, to do the thing that was about me. And it was like, that was really, really difficult. And it just makes you angry and horrible and moody. And that's like the moody artist, isn't it, for me? Because I hadn't been doing my art, or not fully charged, not fully energized to actually do it. It's like all those things, even though I've always had a music job, and I've been really kind of lucky, I would say lucky, but there is skill involved. That I have at some point. I've always been in contact. I haven't been completely like separated from my music. I haven't had guitars pulled off me and told to go work in a field or dig a hole in the road or anything like that. That's never happened. I've always been in contact in some way with the thing that I love doing, which I really, I'm very grateful for. But not in contact with me as an artist, and having all of those things, all those obligations, doing music with everybody else during the day, serving their purposes. I wasn't serving my own. And I was neglected, but then frustrated trying to do my own thing, and nothing was really working. So there was like a time where I just thought, right, okay, you got to really question whether you're serious or not. Because I thought, like, I'm getting frustrated, do I, heaven forbid, give up? Am I just going to give up on the whole thing? What does giving up look like? Okay. And I really couldn't give up. I was like, God, I couldn't imagine my life not having been an artist, being somebody who creates music, and just focus on the mic, isn't it? Who, focuses on creating unique stuff and enjoying that process, enjoying that thing, and the excitement of like when you do finally make something, all of the possibilities it can generate when you connect something to the outside world. It's a calling card, isn't it, for like other interesting opportunities and adventures. And that was always very like appealing to me. So I did have a hard, long think, and you do sit balancing, wondering maybe I could just play guitar or something, or maybe I could just piss about in the studio and pretend, but I couldn't. So I then woke up to myself and go, right, well, it's going to be hard. I'm going to have to make a commitment, okay? So, we have the 4 C's, don't we? So this is the first thing. So I had to make a commitment, okay? And the commitment was quite bluntly, get up in the morning. Except at the time, because I thought I was still in the mindset, well, I need loads of time to produce a track. Remember, I had no music making machine. Had no kind of realization fully that creativity could be modularized in process. I had no tracking system of where tracks were. I was still working in series, so I started something and I finished something. So that's one of the main points in all of this at the start of my journey. So I had so like it was still kind of, the process wasn't defined in any way. It was quite chaotic. Michael, what does Michael say now? Oh, I'll just do the thing here. Oof, add to the broadcast. I think I need to write down like an order of operations, a checklist of things to do, and get a spectrotone chart. Yeah, that's one thing. I mean, organization's good, and I'll kind of come to that. Right. So there's a trick to kind of writing lists, okay, and operations. What you got to think is you kind of design these operations, but what happens, right, if you can't do something or something doesn't work? Okay, so it's a skill that you learn from experience, but we'll come to that because I do, like in my coaching group, that's one of the things I do. I do a lot about writing checklists, okay, and how to kind of well, I'll come to it. It's a bit more complicated than just writing a list. It's so it's also overwhelming. Right, so Michael, great. This is all good. It's also overwhelming because the door is expansive. It is when you think you need to be able to use absolutely every single thing in it, but you don't necessarily. And there's a way that you can practice into that expansion very quickly. So never feel you have to use everything. It's all just about expressing who you are. So anyway, I had to make a commitment. Okay, so the commitment thing. So this is really important because this really kind of outlaid what the one of the overarching processes that I went through. Okay, and this is from like a Dean Jackson coach thing, or I can't remember who it was. But anyway, 4Cs. This really resonates with me, okay? First one is commitment, okay? So we make a commitment. So for me, it's right, I'm sick of my life. I've done this, right? If I don't do something, right, I'm going to end up quitting music and then I'm going to be miserable for the rest of my life. And I don't really, really, really fancy doing that, okay? I want to be an artist. So I'm going to have to get up in the morning. So I decided in my wisdom, you know what, I'll go to bed at 12 and I'll get up at 4:30 in the morning. Yeah, I didn't realize that actually I should get some sleep. So I decided I'll just go crashing into it. So I would get up at 4:30. I made the commitment. This is going to be hard. I realized that like the habit would take round about 14 days really for it to like lock on. It gets easier after about 14 days. You're kind of there. It's like automatic. Some people I think say 21. I would say like 2 weeks without a break. Okay. So I made that commitment. I'm going to do this for like 2 weeks. I'm going to do 2 weeks. I'm going to not break the habit, and I'm going to get up every morning at 4:30 and do my thing. And that was the commitment. And off I went. I set alarms and stuff like that, and I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And the other thing is because I did the environment thing as well. So what I did is I couldn't just I wasn't full. I wasn't in. You know, when I talked about the little cupboard studio, I wasn't actually in there when I did this straight away. So my environment was still. I had a big laptop downstairs and stuff like that. But what I did is I went and got a laptop. Sorry, I had a big computer downstairs, dustbin Mac. But what I did is before I start this, I got a laptop. Okay, because I thought I'll move about making music. So I just used laptop headphones, and I think that was it. I don't think I even had like a. I might have taken. I did later on take a MIDI keyboard, and I just literally got up in the morning, crept upstairs, and I had a laptop because I decided I'll just go software only because I can pick the laptop up and I can go anywhere during the day. So I thought I'm going to make music. I'm going to be mobile in some way to kind of capitalize on other times. So I'd get up 4:30 in the morning. It was quite excited. I thought, oh God, I'm on a special mission here. Like everybody's asleep, and I'd go upstairs and I'd go into upstairs. It was an upside down house as well. This so it was slept like in the basement, and then the living room was upstairs. It was really really nice Georgian apartment actually. So I had this beautiful living room with it's actually on the living room's on you know when I get my first Kiesel guitar. That was the living room, and you can see there'll be a shot, Thomas, as the dining room table. So I used to set up on that dining room table, and I used to look out the window on the park, and I'd occasionally see the odd drunk or somebody walking past. But it would just literally be me and you know, the night in the winter, in the cold winter. So there I would be, freezing in that living room, laptop, and creating music in a chaotic way. So the process was completely mixed up, of course. What I used to do is you know, when I talk about divergent, convergent, that was just absolutely like sandwiched together and completely random. So I'd start making something, then the next thing I'd be completely mixing something that didn't need mixing, and then I'd be adding something else. But I did make a commitment to get up in the morning. I also made a commitment to actually start finishing music completely done, and I gave myself 1 week to finish like one song every week, and that's how I worked. And I had a deadline; it had to be done for the Monday, whatever I did. So I'd get up that's what I did, 4 in the morning, do all these music sessions, right? And then because I ordered at the time and I had a laptop, I knew there was other little bits of time. And what I'd do is I would, after every session, I would just create a little list of like other things that I needed to do. Okay, so there was always a list of actions, and then what I would start doing is like timing how long I thought it would take for each one. So that was quite an important thing to do. So when I came in from work knackered, right, I thought, right, I could pick something to do that was like easy to do to get me sort of into the session. And that's what I'd do. I'd pick a few 5-minute jobs and kind of do them. And then if that was the end of the session, that was the end of the session, but it was still a move forward. So I had using all the other pockets of time, I was able to kind of finish one track every week, you know? And that was just enough to kind of send out to publishers. And then I didn't completely have, I wouldn't say I had completely had a style that I was sticking to. I was just kind of doing various bits of electronic music. All right there, Des. Some of it was very kind of poppy, like for singers and stuff. And then I kind of ventured into like going back into the house music. And it was there that I found my first sort of real kind of voice, I suppose. But I sent all this stuff out. And actually, I had produced a load of tracks for a singer, Karen Harding. So I had all these like song demos that I'd wrote of another guy. And she had actually, at the time, ended up, she did a track with NMEK called Say Something, and she absolutely blew up. She ended up like number 7 in the UK charts. So because like I'd worked with Karen Harding and I had like a load of stuff with her voice on that I'd produced, I'd sent that out to a load of publishers and got quite a bit of interest back. And that's how I ended up with my very good publisher, you know, for most part of it, Paul Rodriguez, who were super creative and great, you know, with my career. Just it didn't work out when it came to me wanting to get onto bigger labels that were wanting my royalties. You know, morally they were correct. to say that artists shouldn't give their royalties away, but this is another story, by the way. But I wanted to do that because I wanted a strategic move, and that was the problem I had. But anyway, it was all very exciting. And then the next thing, there were top liners kind of coming on my track, so I got a little bit of motivation out of that. I thought, oh my god, like other people are like getting involved now, and I've got all this like music to finish off. And I would get up chaotically 4:30 in the morning, and my production time would be like 4:30 to 7:30, and then I would stop then. And so it was quite a chunk of time that I still had in the morning. But no kind of particular creative process like I have now to speed things up. But soon enough, that the trigger of getting up, going upstairs and doing the action kind of worked, and then I started getting into more of the environment thing. So with the laptop thing, that ended up in that isolation cupboard. So I had even better focus, because what that meant is I could go somewhere quiet at any time. So that massively helped. And then I got into flow practice. So that's another thing I've talked about. So looking at flow triggers and how you can use flow triggers to improve your performance. So the idea is that, I'd have, these 3 hours or whatever to produce in. But what I wanted to do is I wanted those 3 hours to feel like, a whole day. I wanted to do as much work as I could in a day. So part of that was doing flow practice. And so I was taking... Right, okay, let's have a look. So Michael says... it's like all work where you have to fight the first 10 to 15 minutes to get going, depending on the things that you can go fast. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So, and I suppose like when I'm talking about the 4 C's, this is like the kind of courage part, isn't it? So that fight, how you're taking that fight on. So I looked at like flow triggers and how I could use those, and hence the clock here. So if I really need to get into flow fast, trying to beat the clock on something is a great way to get you completely focused. And that's been probably the most effective thing, that and like 5 minutes meditation beforehand to quieten the mind down. So by doing things like that, I got other boosts in my performance, and I realized that sort of my sessions were much more, I was kind of going into them, making music, almost being unconscious about myself at the height of it, and then kind of coming out of it was almost like being asleep. It was this meditative state. I'm producing music. There's no past, there's no future. There's just kind of me in it for the most part of it. And what I was experiencing was flow, and that was a huge like boost. And then another part of that was thinking about the divergent and convergent jobs that kind of happen in the process. So the kind of more yes/no answers of mixing are always like, for me, put to the end of the process. And all the sort of, what if I do this sort of stuff, all goes to the front. And that massively helped as well. So that saved time, because at the end of the day, if you don't really come up with something that you don't really want to work on, there's no point in like mixing it, is there? So that process that I started off with, where I was like writing music and then just finishing it would be completely mixed, whether I liked it or not, and I would send it out. A lot of the times, in a self-releasing scenario, you don't want to be like finishing music that you're not going to put out there, really, because you need that time back. So that was a time saver, really, in the process. So, this is all part of the fight. This is the courage kind of thing. And then before you know it, you've got the skill of getting up in the morning, okay? And you have new skills and you have new capabilities and you have confidence. And I suddenly realized, actually, that after 3 months of this, it was pointed out to me by my beloved other half, Sharon, there upstairs, saying, "You're a nicer person." You're a nicer person now because you're doing that. And she actually said that I was like a cat that'd been neutered. So once I got my creative process dialed in, I was like a cat that was neutered. I was all like quite happy and nice during the day, and I wasn't frustrated and like, oh, I don't have to do this. I'm trying to be creative. Sorry, what's this? Doing this as a job is tough. Doing this as a release, it's still tough because I'm constantly battling myself. Yeah. I mean, there's always a little bit of a battle, but you can take a huge amount of it away. You need to do an audiobook with this stuff, man. Really interesting stuff. I should do like a podcast, because this is all, as I say, these are the conditions of success. This is the underlining things that are really, really important, that we don't talk about very much, do we? Because like some people don't want to like talk about it. They just want to, it's that whole thing. I don't mind not being superhuman, and I do like, because all of my work, right, is, it's always been using music to help people live their life to their full potential, whether they want to be a musician or not, interestingly enough, because like music has transferable skills, and this is what we're talking about. Everything I'm talking about this morning, you could apply to your everyday, So anyway, the frustrated artist kind of disappeared. He went. So I thought being a frustrated artist was actually how you were meant to be an artist. I thought, like, if I'm not feeling pain, misery, and hell, right, I mustn't be being an artist. I mustn't be making anything, because you're meant to be like that, and the world doesn't understand you. So anyway, all it was is I just had to get up in the morning and do the thing that I wanted to do. Because I did the thing for me in the morning, everything in the day was just, I was happy. I was like, I'll make everybody a cup of tea in the morning. I'd have time for everybody. Like, I'd come into work and I'd be excited. I'd be like, oh, come on, let's do some music, right? And then also, just like a great game that you'd play at school, buzzing off my morning session, I'd have like little jobs that I could do when I got in home. And it didn't matter if I was tired, because I had a plan. So I'd get all excited and then run in, like a kid, I didn't really play football, but if I had played football, you're excited to get out with your friends to play football on the field. It was like that, but in my own little kind of funny little music world. Running in, get the laptop open, quickly do a few jobs, be nice to everybody and everything. Like it just like 6 months, it was amazing. Just doing that, conditions of success, and we're only on to, there's like 7 of them, and that's 2. So it's like super powerful stuff. So that was the courage. I got new capabilities, and then I got confidence. And the confidence thing was manifest itself in a belief. The belief of, right, I don't need absolutely massive amounts of time to kind of do music. I just need a few hours. But actually, this got a little bit more crazier later on down the line. Because when the automatic music making machine kind of happened, the guy who coached me, Mike Monday, he coaches a lot of like dance DJs, right? So when you think of like those guys, they're traveling the world, okay? And the problem with I was doing electronic music, right? Because like the plan for me was, once I got enough releases and I chart enough times, I'd look for an agent, right? So I had a DJ guy, right? And I thought, because I need him, and then we can just go out and then I'll do some live stuff and he can DJ and it'll all be good. So this was the plan, potentially. And I was well on my way to doing this, right? Okay, because like over this period of time, 2014 to 2019, I charted like 7 times, and I was creating a buzz, and I was managed by 2 Dutch. So the career thing was kind of, it was starting. And I can't remember what I was talking about. But anyway, yes. So dance. So this like other system that I do that kind of came out. Mike developed it, and he developed it because he was coaching a lot of dance DJs, traveling through multiple time zones, hungover, like just messed up, sleep deprivation, exhausted, pressure of gigs and all the stuff that comes with it. But their careers are completely reliant on being visible in some sort of DJ chart. And to do that, you can't just make any old crap. You've got to make good music. So how do you make good music, right? Okay. And literally, you've got no time. Or the only time is when you come home and you're so exhausted, you can't really do anything. So there has to be another way. And this is like kind of where the machine comes from, because you can track the creative process. You can just write all your rough ideas, and then stuff that you want to take forward, you can discover, find out what the music wants to be. You can draft it, and then it can go into done. You decide if you want to release it or not. If you don't want to release it, it goes in a sketchbook. It doesn't mean it's a crap idea. It just means you don't need to release it now. You're interested in this other thing because it's hot, and then you put it into release, and then that's the thing you focus on to get completely finished, mixed and mastered, or send it to your mixing or mastering engineer, whatever. That's in release. Okay. So that like just saves a load of time. And then also thinking about, as we're on about habits, is a minimum viable commitment. So if we think about kind of ordering your day and all the time that you have, right, it's still possible to miss music sessions, like you don't get up in the morning because your alarm doesn't get off and stuff like that. But what is super helpful is to have a minimum viable commitment. Okay. And there was actually, at the time we used to have two, there was a minimum studio viable commitment and just a minimum viable commitment. Sorry. And anyway, so what actually happened is when I was coached on this, Mike was coaching me, and he said, right, how long every day without fail could you make music for? And I said something like 2 hours, right? But actually, I do remember when I audited my time during the day, I actually had 4 to 5 hours a day to make music in, because I identified all these pockets of time. There was like a whole chunk in the morning. And then at the height of it, remember I didn't have this system in place. I used to get longer like lunch breaks. I'd have like an hour. I used to like take the laptop to work because I realized, I could get something done. And then I would make like a little bit of music in the afternoon, and then I'd do a little bit in pockets during the evening. So all kind of collected up, and I'd have like, 30 hours a week. I remember definitely having like, I felt I was hard done by when I had like 21 and a half hours, which is a huge amount of time to create music in a week. If you times 21 hours, a week over a year, and then say, how many albums can I make? Mentally, you can do a few, couldn't you? So minimum value, I was like 2 hours or something, and then he was like, really? So if your life depended on it, right, and you could do 2 hours, and I went, yeah, of course I can. And then off I went, and then I didn't do 2 hours. There were shorter sessions and stuff like that. So then I realized actually, because we need something like really consistent. So I came back, and then I reset it at half an hour, and then the results were much better. And actually, over the time, so I could easily do half an hour, but there were still times that I missed it, and my minimum viable commitment has been down to 5 minutes before, believe it or not. At the minute, it's on 15. So every day I create music for 15 minutes. Because I'm flexing those creative muscles to keep engaged in the process. So, yeah, a 15-minute minimum viable commitment. Now, what's important about having a 15-minute or a 5-minute minimum viable commitment is because you start planning your environment and everything and your time to be able to facilitate that. And the upshot of that is there's always time to make music. Okay? I never go, there's not time to do it. I'm not doing it. I just flick the laptop and I'll open the project that you're working on. In Trello, you've got a list of jobs. Do one. Bang, done. There's 5 minutes and you're one step further forward. And all of these little kind of times like add up to make a whole. So that was kind of the time management side. We've got the core habit, which is like getting up in the morning. So it's the morning session that's the core habit, and then the other things are just like additional things, really. And then, of course, right, you can have, although I've never really consciously done this, at the end of every session, right? I mean, the one thing I did do is at the end of every session, I would try and end a session when I was on a high, when it was good, when it was everything was feeling good, and I wasn't kind of like going down the other side into a producer slump. Same goes for guitar practice. Absolute bullshit. Of course, you got loads of time. Hence my micro practicing. You know, we'll come to that. So this is an important one. So Des, exceptionally good guitar teacher, quality control officer of my chaotic guitar playing on streams when I'm recording. He same goes for guitar practice. So many of my students say they had no time to practice. It is bullshit. There we go. There is always time to practice. We just got to have clear goals set. That's what it is. When people don't have time to do anything, this is like another theme of old Hutch. There was never any list, and there wasn't any focus, and there wasn't really any identification of like strengths and weaknesses or anything like that. So it was all just one big random splurge, and I just dive in and start doing stuff, you know. There's nothing strategic about it, really, apart from I need to finish more music. So that's a good point, that. All right, no, I'll have to check the Adamant picture. That's important. Excellent. I went to see Adamant live, actually, a number of years ago. Very good. He played a guitar solo. It was like an A major chord that he arpeggiated. The crowd went wild. There's me spending years trying to shred, right? And friggin' Adamant comes along, gets like better results playing an A major chord, arpeggiated. Not even a bar chord, like that one. Ding, 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 A major. I know life's unfair, isn't it? He writes a good song though, doesn't he? So, yeah. Where was I in my chat? Where do I want to go to with this? So yes, so ending your session when you first start doing this, you want, because you want your brain to feel like it's having a good time, right? So when you start feeling you're overdoing your session, and you're starting to go down the other side, and you're starting to get lost, and you start doing actions that potentially damage the music, that's when to stop, and you just stop doing the session, and you end happy, and then your brain just subconsciously wants to come back to it later, because you want to have that excitement, without a doubt. So I mean, that's sort of like just an overview of like how really I started Conditions of Success. This is like early on, me being coached before I ended up coaching. So I'll just have a look at the chat at the minute. My mindset is to look at everything as art. Had an old friend that made tiny shoes art. Right, okay. Art as a mindset. So all your time and your creativity, it's a mindset. Absolutely. And yeah, tying your shoes is an art. So, I've mentioned it before. One of the weird things about me is I ended up doing a scholarship. So I was paid to do a master's. I was on a master's program. I didn't have a degree. I just actually got straight onto a master's, and I got a scholarship. And I think that a lot of that was because my interest in art wasn't in art at all. it was suggested to me that I do music on a visual art course, right? Bizarre. But it was a fine art course, and by definition, fine art, you can use anything you want to express yourself. So shoes is a big one, isn't it? So like artists tend to use like shoes for all kinds of things. I mean, the classic one is, unfortunately, like Holocaust type art, piles of shoes, sculptures. But at the time, so this will be 2003, I was starting to get a little bit disillusioned with kind of music, and I realized, I need to start thinking of a more stable career. So I need some sort of like qualification, other than my graded stuff. So I went off to do a master's, but I wanted to do something that would really kind of shake me up a bit. And I started getting really into kind of just questioning what music really was and wanting to deconstruct it. So my crazy thoughts were to do a master's in fine art as a musician. So it's like music, fine art. And I became a sound artist. And it was a guy, the guy who was my tutor was brilliant, John Kefliker. So he was my like kind of main tutor guy. And off I went. And what I did was I kind of used visual concepts within music. And I became this sort of electronic composer that was into found sound. So in other words, the basis of what I was doing was this genre of music that came from the 1940s called musique concrète. I know this isn't anything to do with shredding, but it was a very, very interesting time for me and opened up like so many doors, and I ended up doing 2 masters. I did a second one, which was in curating, because the next problem is I was now doing these like sound art pieces. And as an artist, where do you display them? How do you display them? So there had to be some sort of theory based around that I needed to develop. So I then went on and did a master's in curating, which specialised in curating audio art, both in gallery and site-specific contexts. So there you go. But that was another life. Like, that's, unfortunately, then I would spend like months doing a piece of music. Like a sculptor, it would take ages. Like, because everything I had to have some sort of like social context to why I was doing it. There had to be, every single move was like, there had to be a discussion had around it, like why I was doing that thing, what was the meaning, where does this come from, But I could do a whole separate stream. I could do the lecture on what I was trying to do as a sound artist thing, because I suppose it's interesting in terms of like how diverse you can actually think about things. But I ended up back doing what I love doing, which is writing a good tune. You can't beat a good tune. Something you can tap your foot to. Something people can sing. That's what you need. Oh, hi Ice King, how you doing? No, it's great to be here. Talking. It's a talky one. I've been talking about habits. Creating positive habits. So there was a really good book as well, talking about creating positive habits. There's Atomic Habits. Atomic Habits is a great book that I suggest everybody read. Amazing. Like, one of the things I really like in Atomic Habits book is how the British racing cycle team became elite, and literally they were just focusing on every part of the process. So they focused on getting the players to like wash their hands, the riders wash their hands properly so they got less diseases, like illnesses. They would like removing one screw to lose a bit of weight off a bike. They totally overhauled the training regime in like lots of ways, and became absolutely elite just by slightly making tiny little modifications as they trained. So it's I highly recommend that, and I do recommend everybody, and I'm sure you all do this, but one of the big boosts to me is having Audible, because I hate reading books. I'm dyslexic, so I struggle. Like, my mind just wanders and the pages move and stuff. But when I'm in the car, I have an audio book on, and I can literally absorb somebody's life in a week. um, so like a lot of the time when I'm disciplined, and doing my kind of yeah, I use like it's a bit like library time in the car going to work. So I'll have an audio book on and I'll try and learn something, or an interview, or something like that. But there's like a reading list that I can highly recommend if anybody's interested in that, and books to consume about music that will like practically give you massive boosts in your creative performance. So yeah, so we got the minimum viable commitment. So I think that's where I got up to. So there was always a point in doing music. So at this point, you've got me getting up at 4:30 in the morning, doing. I've made the commitment. I get up most mornings and do music. I've even identified bits of time during the day that doesn't have a habit round it, but I'm so excited I can do a few little jobs. There's no pressure there. I'm using my lunch times to produce music, so everything is going really, really well. But life does change, and some of the times do get kind of taken away from you. So once I got used to the minimum viable commitment, and once I started getting good at flow practice, in other words, if I did a session for 2 hours, it felt like a whole day. I would get like literally a day or days worth of work, what I would normally get done in that short space of time. That was massively eye opening. The fact I could do that, and a lot of that, one of the main boosts of that performance was actually trusting myself, and not second guessing everything. So that whole kick drum story, starting a track with a kick drum, the most important part of a dance track, isn't it? So the kick drum's got to be right. How can the kick drum possibly be right if there's only a kick drum there and no other music, right? It was complete madness. So I would go through hundreds of kick drums trying to pick the right one, imagining an unimaginable song that it would fit with. I mean, it's just absolute frigging madness. So when you trust yourself, it's just ding, 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 kick drum, that'll do, put it in, it's good enough. And then you start writing your music round the kick drum, don't you? That's like, and then it's the right kick drum, isn't it? Because you write to the kick drum, or you write a melody, and you ask yourself, what does this melody want? Okay, it needs a drum. Which drum? Do that one fits? That'll do. That's it. That's all there is to it. And you just start trusting yourself. Unfortunately, as I always mention, it's the outdated education system that tells us that easy is bad. Easy is not good. We have to hard work equals good. Because fundamentally what it was doing is it was training us for the factory, wasn't it? It was training us to be good workers in a factory, and you had to work hard to get the good results there. But that's not the case with music, If we trust ourselves, things can just fly together quite easily, all right? You just do something. Is it good enough? It'll do. Move to the next thing. And, those quality judgments soon go. And then you realize, wow, this is happening, and it's happening quicker. So that was in the process, that was one of my real power-ups. And then you start realizing you don't need all the time in the world to produce music. You can do things because suddenly instead of like having to second guess a decision 10 times over, so 10 times guessing a decision, you're doing it in one. That's like you're producing music, you're 10 times more efficient just by trusting yourself. I mean, that was like so massively eye-opening for me. And how did I learn to trust myself? I just had to do it. Okay. And I remember early on in my being coached, I had a crisis, as I do, a bit like my economy picking crisis, where it became an existential threat to my whole being. I was getting up, and I was really used to winning. So I was getting up. These are still the 4:30 sessions, and I was getting up, and I was giving the publisher a track every day. And then suddenly I felt I couldn't produce music anymore because I'd had a few crap sessions, and I was getting up and I was going, God, I can't get anything done. I don't like any of this, and like this is awful, and like I've forgotten how to do music. And then that thought just dragged me down in a spiral. And that was because I was making a comparison. I was comparing myself to the self that was winning, and that's not always a part of it. So I was looking at like how bad I was and how good I was, and thinking, God, I've totally lost it. And then I was thinking about the future expectations of being shit, and that wasn't helping. So I'm traveling up this timeline. I'm not actually focused in on what actually is real with the music. And one of the things that actually helped me was I was just told by my coach, and he just went, Tim, how about I give you permission to make absolute shit music? So this is where the first of the kind of not making a quality judgment comes from. So that's what Mike said to me, and then I said, right, okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let go, and I'm just going to make shit music. And you know what we say is, if you don't make shit, you get constipated, and this is the creative process. Now, I used to think of this writing shit music like turning a tap on. Actually, the water that comes out of my tap's really good, by the way, but turning a tap on and all the kind of rubbishy water comes out, and then you get the good stuff. That's kind of what would happen. And that's really the first of like kind of splurging lots of ideas. So I'd just make lots of ideas, and I wasn't really focused on any kind of, there was no quality judgment at all. I was just making stuff. And then I noticed that what I was making was like becoming a little bit less of a formula, more diverse, more interesting ideas, which was very eye-opening. And then I was kind of making music that I felt was like a new direction. And then the excitement came back, and then all that kind of judgment about quality wasn't there. I was doing something else, and you know that there more doors opened just by doing that, by just saying I'm going to make shit music. It's really difficult to make shit music when you say I'm going to make shit music, you know. And the other thing is that you don't know that it's shit because we're completely unreliable in the moment. And you learn over time to sort of like distance yourself from that. So I know this is quite in depth on habits, but I've got to. Is everybody following this okay? I hope I'm not kind of waffling. All right, and then because I'm being naughty and I'm on Twitch as well, but it's important. I have to get this message out because conditions of success are important, and I want us all to be thinking about it, because I think there'll be little bits of this that will resonate with people, and there'll be bits of it they want to try out and get and just have a nicer time making music. Because we make music because fundamentally it's fun, isn't it? I mean, like I don't make music to be tortured. Definitely not. I wanna have a nice time. Right, I'm gonna have a think. So as I say, there are 7 conditions to success. So we've done environment, we've done habits, all right. And the next stream, we're going to do insight and analysis. And that's going to be fun. So that's a really good one. Again, I'll probably be rambling. I don't know how long. Actually, when I started this stream, I wasn't sure if I would be able to talk for the full stream about just habits, but I have done. And I did say also that I would make some music, but that's looking like less likely now because I'm talking. So has anybody got any questions so far? Is there anybody motivated to start installing a positive habit into their lives, maybe around their music making practice? And it can be practiced like, I'm relating all of this to stuff in the studio, music production, especially electronic music. However, all of this stuff I applied to playing guitar. So I've kind of always been a shredder. But very similar story to Thomas. I went dormant, right? So I wasn't like fully practicing like athlete status to be, fully chop ready. Sounds interesting. Good. So what I did have to do is I then had to like go back and, apply all of this stuff to my guitar practice. And part of that was this idea of micro practicing, because balancing writing music and then practicing being in some sort of like shape on guitar, it's kind of like your time comes down again, doesn't it? So the idea of micro practice was the thing that I really got interested in, really. And I mean, all that like boils down to the micro practice is being aware of. It's all about awareness, right? So this is in a game of music stuff. You never try, like when you're playing something, you practice something. You never try to play it. You merely play it and you observe. And your brain tends to fix things. But the other thing about observation is you find out kind of where the problems are, and then you can fix those problems through observation, or from eventually, if it's really bad, like sort of doing some research on it. Best example I can think of here, and a really good example, is slanted picking, Troy Grady. Yes, so you go here, Gramps. Well, I'll come to that one. I'll just do Gramps first. I do early morning practice and it makes me feel good all day. Trying to put together music theory. Yeah, see, there you go. Doing what you're really interested in and doing it in the morning and feeling good all day. That's what I'm all about. Smart, Alex. This has been a great talk today. Hutch, I've been inspired. Thank you very much, Alex. I enjoy doing these talks, and I think it's important that the discussion is had, that I kind of give out, these things, because I'm sure a lot of what I'm saying we all get some sort of identification with in terms of the struggle. So best thing to do is to put myself out there. My brief exposure to these ideas has certainly sparked a new creative and looking at myself as part of the process. Never did that before. Absolutely brilliant stuff, Ice King. Love it. Excellent. But yes, it's all about having that regular time that you do the thing that you want to do. And as I say, doing my music practice at the beginning of the day where my attention span is high is good. And also when you wake up, you're in a slight dream state still. The world hasn't kicked in to like, of all the jobs and things and like other responsibilities you've got to do. The power of the morning is a beautiful free time, and it's the time I can really, really claim to be my own. And nobody messes with that. When you get up in the morning, my family aren't up and they're just like, oh, you're getting up in the morning, it's great. That's it. Because otherwise I'd just be in bed sleep. It's 100% my time. It's nobody else's time. And as a result, I've got time for everybody else. So yeah, the conditions of success. So environment, habits. The Friday we'll be doing insight and analysis. So this is in on the creative process. This is going to be really important. Insight and analysis, because there are two things that live with each other, and both need each other. Okay, and that's absolutely right. You see, yeah. I guess Sharon can't boss you about when she's asleep. She can't. But she'll sleep talk about the jobs I've got to do the next day. Right, you're going to have to go to the shop. You're going to have to go to the shop. You're going to have to get like 4 litres of milk. That's the first thing you're going to do. And you're hoovering the stairs. Hoovering the stairs. As soon as that live's finished, you can't go over 7:30. You have to hoover the stairs. Yeah. That's like what you're hearing, like in the sleep. So, she's super organized. In fact, she's a professor now. How mad is that? I have a professor in the house. It's incredible. The crazy conceptual ideas that live in this house is just outstanding. It's all plausible fiction. So yeah, insight and analysis. So we'll be talking about that, and we'll be looking at how you can use that in your creative process. And remember, the direction that we're going in here, it's not just about music. I would encourage everybody to try some of these, to try this. Have a think about how you can try this in your everyday life. I know all the stuff that happened that I learned as a coach kind of changed everything I did in work, and my career in like all directions has gone like literally exponentially shot up. So insight and analysis tomorrow. Please don't miss that. And then we'll be continuing into next week, Monday and Tuesday, with these conditions of success. So after insight and analysis, we're going to be looking at, if I remember how I overcame this, we're going to be looking at probably fear. So fear is going to be a big one. The fear of the unknown. That's what we're going to talk about. Because it's elusive and it hides and it manifests itself not just as fear but as procrastination. Yeah. So it's a big one, fear. I'll tell you what I did early on with the fear thing. It'd be quite surprising. So we'll be talking about fear. We will be talking about, we'll do, I don't know how long, it'll probably be a slightly shorter one, but we'll be talking about boredom. We'll be talking about skills. So I'm going to leave skills because like that's the one area, right? Everybody's going to be like focused in is like skills, isn't it? And then the last one will be community. So just having a look at your audience, having a look at your tribe, developing a tribe of people who, are like-minded, who are interested in your stuff, who will be absolute fans of everything that you do. So that's the kind of way we're going to be doing things. Right, has anybody got any question? I would love to have a question. Is anybody struggling with anything and that maybe they're thinking about because of what I've been saying this morning? Anything at all, but don't feel under pressure to say anything. I'm just sitting here chilling, having my cup of coffee. So, like, one of my goals, actually, I decided to do once getting and this was literally just sort of last minute thinking, is that I realised that I want to talk more on camera, because it's a skill that I want to develop, and I kind of, as you know, like everything that I talk about has to be quite serious. But one of my goals is to, be able to hold my own and talk indefinitely and not rely on making music, picking guitars up and all that kind of thing. So this has been just something that I've been wanting to do, and it's been great so far. So I've enjoyed that. So even though, I'm talking about stuff that I've been through, that I'm quite confident with, the actual delivery method of why I'm doing it, I'm not 100%. I'm out of my comfort zone a bit, which is good. Which reminds me, there's another part to this, to the habits, right? So another really important thing to think about is and at some point I'll put together some sort of flow practice torque. But one of the conditions of flow is the skill to challenge ratio. So this is one thing we need everybody to be thinking about, because if you don't have this dialed in right, like if you have something, if you do a task that isn't challenging enough that you can easily do, you get bored of it and you disengage. Oh, right, yeah, Gramps, the Baywatch, yeah. So, question, where can I get that Baywatch sweatshirt? Yes, there's a company called Vonk. I should ask them for some free stuff, actually. The artist, it's an artist who I've known for years called Jock Mooney, who it's like a side thing for him. And he does the designs. He's an amazingly talented sculptor, believe it or not. But Jock Mooney is his name, and Vonk is the company that you go to get those wacky shirts that I wear. So, like, I've got a psychedelic Grace Jones one. I've got the Baywatch one, Pamela Anderson, which I was taking the mick because, like, you know, like how sort of like some of the chat channels that have cleavage showing. So I thought, like, to up the ratings, that's how I could kind of do it. I've got a Glenn Close one for the knife. What else have I got? I've got a few. Excellent. There's like a load on there. So I'm gonna have to think about getting a new one done. Yeah, so skill to challenge ratio. If it's too easy, you're not. You're going to disengage from it, okay, and switch off. If it's too challenging, you'll just become like upset. It's too hard. I don't want to do this. So you have to think about the skill to challenge ratio. Psychologist Csikszentmihalyi says that it's between 4 and 7%. I think he did anyway. How you measure it, it doesn't really say. I never got that far. But incrementally, it's not that much, okay, out of your comfort zone. So this is another thing when you're doing guitar practice, is to have things that are achievable. And then, yeah. So I do dart about, and I do actually, talking about the micro practicing thing, so that completely applies to that. You know, so I talked about the observational thing, the subconscious brain fixing things at a lower level. But then we have like the deliberate and purposeful practice. So practicing as well, you've got to think about, right, if you're deliberately practicing, which is what you want to be doing, is you're literally getting into the weeds of this and you're working out, for example, the slanted picking. So you'd be working on the angles and trying to understand that and then implementing it in your practice. And what you might do is you might just be practicing 2 notes. And what you can do is if you've got 2 minutes, you can just practice those 2 minutes wherever you're near a guitar during the day. And, you soon get really good kind of doing that. It's worked massive. I've had massive benefits from doing that. Anyway, I thought I missed that out. So I think I'm about done for today. That is my take on, that's my rambling on habits. I hope you've all enjoyed that. I've told a little story about how I started, where it's ended up, and here we are. And tomorrow, as I say, it's going to be insight and analysis, which will be a good one. All right then. I'll see you all tomorrow morning, bright and early.